Welcome to Trail Chasers Season 3, a beginner's guide to trail running. Trail running isn't just about who you run with, it's also about the incredible community behind the sport. Today we're exploring how races like UTCT and UTD bring that community together. My guest today is the amazing Sue Ullyett, the events manager of Ultra Trail Cape Town and Ultra Trail Drakensberg. But Sue describes herself as a jack of all trades, part runner, part writer, and full-time community builder. Having been involved in UTCT since the inception, she's seen firsthand how the event has evolved into something much bigger than a race. In this episode, Sue and I dive deep into why community matters in trail running, how people can get involved beyond racing, and why volunteering is one of the best ways to experience the sport. If you love trail running and you want to be part of something bigger than just running and racing, this episode is for you. Sue, welcome to the Trail Chasers.
Thank you. Great to finally be here.
So this season's all about beginners, getting into the sport, and we're trying to create a bit of a beginner's guide for trail runners. And I think an important component of that is the community element. The word community is obviously used a lot now. And I think you guys are definitely, at UTCT and UTD are kind of have really defined that definition. And it doesn't feel staged or it doesn't feel forced. It feels like a real family. And that's what makes it so special, So I think it's so important for people to understand what comes kind of behind these races, that it's not just a really cool races to actually do. So thank you. When you are at the start line of the races at UTCT or UTD, what is that feeling like for you? What's that kind of draw? What are you experiencing in those moments?
It's so many emotions. I think my team always laugh about how much I cry on the finish line and the start lines. Yeah. But it's a coming together of friends, people who feel like family. They're either running or they're supporting, they're going to be out on the route, supporting their runners. And as you said, I think we do talk about this community, but I've been doing this is my 10th year of doing UTCT and I think it's my 4th UTD. And I mean, to give you an example, the UTD guys come and camp they come and spend 3 days up in the Berg. That's how excited they are about helping. And UTCT is the same. They don't get much. They get a T-shirt, but they get to be part of something really special. And and the same people keep coming back year and, every single year. Plus, it's just grown. I mean, UTCT, we get, it's about close to 700 volunteers. So it's massive. It really is, across the different roles. And we rely on them to make the event work. They're a big part of our event.
Yeah, I think it's also amazing that it's more than kind of giving back to the race, because it's so much, part of the community, So if you're volunteering at UTCT, you're giving back to the community as on a whole. Because I think most of Cape Town's trail runners are volunteering or running, So you're giving back. It's almost like a year of, you taking, and now you're having that opportunity to kind of give back.
There's guys that give up their entry. I'm injured, I can't run. And then they go, but I want to help. How can I help? Put me to work. And I think that for me is incredible, that they still want to be part of it, even though they're injured, or you'd think if you're injured, that's the last thing you want to do is be around a whole lot of other runners, but they just want to be part of it, which is very special for to see.
So the season is sponsored by Gilnockie socks, and we've created a pair of socks that look like this. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to ask you now, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but at the end of the episode, I want you to think of 2 words that you would have on the back of your sock. So give it some, obviously bear in mind that it'll probably be more for the person behind you, but, give it some thought, and I'll ask you again at the end.
Okay, cool.
What have kind of been the most pivotal moments in your life, in your career, that have kind of led you to this point?
Well, I started out working on, funny enough, at Old Mutual in PR, and ended up working on Cape Town Marathon, those kind of events back in the day. I'm talking 20 odd years ago. Wow. Worked on 2 Oceans, and then quite by chance ended up having a coffee with Stuart 10 years ago just to chat about this event called UTCT. And now I'm part of the family, I think. Yeah, and it's been a small team. We've worked together for the 10 years and it's just grown from there. It's just kind of been a very much, can you do this? Yeah, you know, and just getting people involved and just seeing the event grow has been pretty special.
What prompted that coffee?
Kerry B, a friend of ours, mutual friend, said, I think the two of you should chat.
Yeah.
Given the experience I had, and I guess they were looking for someone. It was just the two partners, Stu and Nick, and they needed some help with events. And so the coffee just led to this long term. I'm still there.
Yeah. And I don't know if you have a business card, but if you have a business card with your name, what does it say underneath your name?
I'm an event manager.
Yeah.
Technically, that's my title at UTCT, but I would say like probably jack of all trades, master of none, maybe. You end up this role as I've grown, I've learned so much.
Yeah.
It's been about, getting to know the trail space. I do all kinds of things, I think.
Yeah.
You know, Stu and I, we've taken on other team members, but we pretty much have done this together.
And is it kind of copy and paste every year, or is there kind of like every year it changes
every single year? In fact, you know, last year we kind of get to a point where we've just mastered, like we introduced the miler, and that was a whole new ball game of going through 2 nights, and then we'd sort of like we just got that going, and then we introduced a 16K last year. So it's sort of like I said to the team this year, I'm like, can we just keep it the same for this year, that we kind of know what we're dealing with, because it really does, it changes from, it's not just plug and play. I think people think, oh, but your race is in November, you've got lots of time. And the planning started like in January, and it just it ramps up. There's never a dull moment.
What makes UTCT and UTD so different from all the other races in South Africa and maybe even in the world?
Where they take place has a lot to do with it. I think Cape Town is incredible in terms of trail, and the fact that we're so close to the ocean as well. I mean, the internationals and the elites that come here are blown away by what we have on our doorstep, where a lot of people in Europe and that they have to travel to get to the trails, whereas we're literally roll out of bed, get onto a trail. It's so accessible. UTD is perhaps different, but in terms of it's not like a city, but that's what makes it special. It's this tiny little village, Underberg, that's so remote, but you're in these massive mountains. That for me is what makes that special.
And in general, you know, trail running and community have kind of go hand in hand. Why do you think that is? And why do you think UTCT and UTD have kind of fostered that community element?
It's got a lot to do with the community trail runs that we have in and around Cape Town, not to pick out any one specific, because I think they all have a role. I don't know, it's different. There's always a willingness from trail runners to get involved and to be part of it, whether they're running or helping. And I think we've just, way back, we noticed that, and it was something that it made sense to get them involved. I do know that Nick got the idea to do UTCT from the Hong Kong 100, and they had also quite a big volunteer base, and I think just over the years we've built up a huge community of people that, as I said earlier, they feel like family, and many of them have become friends over the years.
And what role do those kind of people play behind the scenes?
Sure. They do anything from, they're at aid stations. They man the aid station. You know, we have the aid station captains, and those guys keep coming back year after year. We've got guys that have been doing it since the first one, 2014, and they still are aid station captains. They help with reg, they forerun, they route mark. It's literally a 10-day period that we get them involved. They sweep. We've got a massive crew of sweepers that sweep each event. And then they help on the finish line. They're giving out the beers, the medals. They really are. And they work through the night, they come prepared, and that's what they do. They're doing the graveyard shift. They just want to be part of it. And it's quite incredible to see.
And, how important is that? Because obviously they're playing a lot of like the front facing, roles. So how important is that you have members of the kind of the like local community who often are friends with the runners and, interact almost every week with the runners?
It's so important. You want that runner coming in to be made to feel special. And I think the people that we choose in those front-facing roles as well, or any of the roles, they're always willing to help. They're smiling, they're happy. You want people to be welcoming. And my role is so easy. I don't even have to tell them, a lot of them just arrive and they know what to do. Our briefings are short and simple because they already know what's expected of them. And then often the volunteers that have been around for a while, they'll just jump in and start teaching the newbies. So it makes our jobs a lot easier.
And do you have any kind of standout inspiring stories or memories from the last 10 years?
I think for me, the one that really stands out is Dave Waywell. He's a VOB member. He's pretty much been there from the get-go, from 2014. He's run aid stations. He's route marked. I don't really want to single out everybody, but I think for me also, when the final miler comes in, the sweeps are there, they light the flares, they're so excited. They like come to you an hour before, like, where are the flares? We need to get ready. And I think that's also a standout moment. And then there's lots of tears and emotions on that finish line when that last runner comes in any of the distances, whether it's the 16 or the miler. I remember the one, that actually thinking back, the Southern Sun, one of the hotel guys, he was the F&B manager. I think it was before that, the partner before that. He decided, no, he's going to do the 23. And he was literally came in as the cutoff was going. And that was really special because everyone went out and brought him home and he was finished. He thought, I'm just doing 23. So that was a standout moment. The starts are emotional. They build and everything. But for me, the finish line is seeing those guys come in, their support crews, their people who've been out on the route, pretty much seconding them, through the aid stations, to see that emotion, that raw emotion on the finish line. It brings a lot of emotions out in everybody who's part of that. I mean, you've been on finish lines, you know what it's like,
And how important is kind of to create that sort of welcoming atmosphere, obviously throughout an entire weekend, and people coming in like early hours of the morning, and how important is that kind of element of it?
It's so important. We actually talk about, because when the winner's coming in, that's obviously there is a vibe for them, and that's not difficult to create. But it's your guys that are coming in at 2 a.m. that you need to be excited for that. And I mean, the MCs and the guys who welcome them home for them, Max always speaks about, okay, what are we doing at 2 a.m., Susie, kind of thing. That's what he always says to me, like, we have to bring these guys home and make them feel special. So I think that everybody is, even, the volunteers, everyone's who's working the late shift, so that we can make sure that everybody feels welcome from the first runner to the last one. So I think my job's, I don't need to tell them to do that. Everybody's kind of working towards that.
Yeah. I think it's also because everyone's probably been in that position.
Totally.
That's so important as well.
Most of the people that work on our finish lines or work in our event have experienced being out there, either through running UTCT or any other event. They're runners, and they know what's gone on behind the scenes.
Yeah. It's quite a difficult thing to kind of describe to someone who's never done a UTCT or UTD, what that kind of vibe and energy is of the weekend. And it doesn't really need, I think it speaks for itself. But is there a way to kind of encapsulate that?
Sure. I think R&B did it really well. They did a support as video and reel at the end of last year that kind of, for me, brought together how important it is to have your crew, and it also captured very, very cleverly the essence of UTCT.
Do you get an opportunity to go to other races in the world and, learn from them?
I haven't been, but Stuart goes regularly to, obviously UTMB, he's been to Western States, he's done quite a few of the US events, and now with World Trail Majors coming on board, they like to have a representative from each event to go to most of the events. So certainly I think in the next year or so I'll get to go, but Stuart goes often to keep in touch with that trail community that's over there as well, because that's important in terms of looking for guys to come out and race our event. But also there is a trail conference that is in the States just before Western States that we're planning to be at, because that's like an ideas swap and a kind of just to make sure that, I think that what we're doing is good. We're on the money, but you can always improve. You can always learn from other events, and it is good to go and see what other events are doing. And not only overseas, I think it's important for us to go to the other trail events that are out there. And we do, certainly we go, and I haven't been running that much lately, but I did used to. I do a lot of trail running. So it is nice to go and be on the other side and to just learn as you're going along. You sort of go like, oh wow, that's quite a cool idea. And it's not to pinch from them or to steal ideas, but it's good to see what other events are doing. And I certainly think that events in South Africa are, we put on some pretty good events, not only trail but road as well. We're up there.
And if someone's new to the sport, what is kind of the best way for them to get involved in UTCT? Is there kind of a beginner's way of getting involved, or is it kind of just like volunteer and you kind of get placed somewhere?
It is just coming along and choosing something that works for you, a shift that works. The aid stations are always pretty popular and people like to get involved in those. But I would say just sign up.
I love what you've done with the aid stations, obviously, in terms of with the captains and, making them almost like their own little communities. So how was that kind of built, and how's that kind of evolved?
Well, I think we just, every year we found we'd have some people come back and there'd be new people, and we'd kind of be starting from scratch again. So the last few years, certainly post-COVID, we have gone back to our pool of aid station captains and said, we've either gone back to them and they've come and said, sign me up, or even as it finishes, they're like, we're in for next year. So, and that makes sense because then they understand and they also learn from the year what went wrong. And we always get these detailed debriefs of what worked, what didn't, and then they take it forward into the next year. And so we basically, as you said, we just hand it over to them and they run with it. We send them volunteers that have signed up, but a lot of them find their own people. So it takes a huge. We used to do that all ourselves, but with them kind of owning their space, it takes a huge weight off our shoulders. And also kind of gives them, they can make it their own as well. They get encouraged to make special food that kind of stands out. People can say, oh, the pancakes that I had at XYZ were amazing. And so, that's worked for us. Now and again, it changes. We have to bring in someone new, but it always works. I think people just slot in and it's,
And it's very often they kind of do the aid station within their kind of community as well, or like have some type of presence there. So it really fits. And then, as you say, they get like volunteers from the community. So it really does create that kind of, especially for the 100-miler, where you're going through various communities. It really does create that kind of journey and flavor.
Yeah, totally. Like the Cork Bay one is at the primary school. And so the kids get involved, the teachers get involved, people go there and they get a taste of Cork Bay. Same with Simonstown. We try and keep it very local. And Com Surf as well. That's a huge running community there that Marcy and the crew there run really, really well. It works.
You know, we chatted a bit before the interview about the 16K that you've introduced. So let's perhaps talk about the kind of other side of the community element, you know, of getting people into the sport, getting people on the kind of racer side of the community. So what has been the focus there, and why was the 16K introduced?
I think our partners were quite keen to, you know, we want everybody to experience UTCT. And we've spoken about it for a few years about getting something shorter. But then having said that, it's not the easiest route that was chosen either. No. It's quite a tough route. On the one hand, we're saying, you know, start trail running, but then we take them up Table Mountain and down Castiles. But we thought, you know, it's 16, it's on a Friday, and it actually sold out. And it was people who had never trail run before and thought, oh, let me just try this. But it was also people who had done the 100K before or maybe, and it was just like, okay, I want to be part of it. Let me come run. And I think all the events, whether they're shorter or longer, they have that element of people who've done it before, but also people who are doing it for the first time. I recall last year I was doing late reg for the 23, and this guy came up to me at the start line saying, got this new pack, like how do I work it, how do I put it together? So he was like a complete beginner, but ended up, I think he came second or third. I mean, he was speedy, but he just had no clue about trail. So yeah, I think you're always gonna get people signing up for new stuff, but the thought behind the 16 was, you know, that we could involve everybody.
And was it a success?
Very much so. We thought, as I said, like being on a Friday, would people want to do it? And we sold out, and it was a great success.
Trail running beats up everything, your legs, your lungs, and especially your feet. The last thing you need is socks that give up before you do. That's why I'm thrilled to announce that this season of Trail Chasers is sponsored by Gilnockie Socks. These aren't just your run-of-the-mill socks. Gilnockie socks are made for people who demand more performance, more durability, and more comfort. They're designed to prevent blisters with premium moisture-wicking materials that keep your feet dry no matter how long or muddy the trail gets. Plus, they're treated with HydroCool and Silver Plus, so they stay fresh, breathable, and ready for your next adventure. Since I started using Gilnockie socks, I haven't had to stop mid-run to adjust or worry about discomfort. They just keep working mile after mile, run after run. So why settle for socks that don't keep up? Visit gilnockie.com and use the code TRAILCHASERS at checkout for 20% off your first order. Trust me, once you try them, you won't go back. Your feet will thank you. What makes volunteering at a race like this, you know, such a valuable experience? But then also, what is the feedback that you kind of get from these volunteers as to like why they keep coming back?
I think a lot of people who volunteer feel the need to give back. That's their ultimate goal, is they want to give back. But I also think that they perhaps can't run for a reason. You know, they're maybe not running that much anymore, or not doing trail, or for whatever reason. So they still want to be part of it. And I think that's what keeps people coming back. I also think that we give the volunteers a discounted entry for the following year. That's also sometimes a goal, you know. They want to build up, they want to come check the event out, and then they run, but they still volunteer. They go, okay, well, I'm running on Friday, but I'm going to help on Sunday kind of thing, or I'm running on Sunday, but I'd love to help on Thursday, Friday. So there is that element of, even though they're running, they still want to be part of it, which for me is, it's it's a special community.
I think it's so important to have that kind of, get that perspective from both sides.
Definitely.
And especially as a volunteer as well, to have the running experience as well as kind of the volunteering experience. And yourself personally, where is like your go-to place for running, in South Africa or in Cape Town? Is there an area that it's just like, this is my happy place?
Silvermine,
okay,
for me.
Yeah.
I live in Muizenberg and I can go to Silvermine and run on my own. I always feel safe there. The trails are beautiful. There's easy stuff around the dam, but you can also take it up to Blackburn and to the mast and access many other trails as well. And I love that part of the world. I've got to know it in the last sort of 4 years of running there. It's beautiful. Newlands Forest is also another special one for me. But I find Silvermine great because it's just open and vast and not a lot of people around, which is nice.
Yeah. And we chatted a little bit, we touched on it a little bit, I think one of the kind of standouts for me is the race village. A lot of races seem to struggle to get it right, and you guys really hit the nail on the head. What was the thinking, in the beginning around it, or has it just kind of evolved? How did you implement that, and what was the thinking?
Nick is an architect,
okay,
the guy who started it with Stuart, and he basically came up with the original idea. I mean, it has changed over the years, obviously. In fact, I look at the photos from 2014 and it was a couple of fence wraps and feather banners that actually ended up being blown into the corner of the field because of the southeaster the night before. But certainly now Nick created a blueprint that over the years we've sort of worked out what works, what didn't. And I think we've found a way now to really make that race village work. And we have plans for this year to expand it out. Amazing. We need to make it a little bit bigger, and which is exciting. We're working on it now in terms of making it bigger and to accommodate the runners.
I think it's such an important gathering place during the weekend, or that post race kind of celebration, and so I think it just makes it quite a special place.
Thanks, Dean. I think for us it was about facilitating the support crews, the runners and the spectators, that they could all kind of be down that finish line and have access to our finish line. We don't typically stop people from being in the finish line area because we want it to be flowing and fluid and for everyone to have access to their runners coming in, which I think is different to quite a lot of events, that they becomes just about the runner. So I think that is something that we wanted to make sure happens.
And then, we also chatted about it before, but how do kind of the local communities around the events kind of benefit? And I know you've done a lot of work with some of the local communities and charities, so let's dive into a little bit of that, the kind of work that you do there.
So we've got Friends of Table Mountain and then the Sugarbird Trust and the Cedar Project in the Cedarburg. So those are our three main charities that we support. And I think certainly all of them were rewarded quite substantially last year from runners' generosity, and certainly from RMB helping with that as well. Certainly Friends of Table Mountain, we fixed so many trails through them. And I think you can see the different little signs around the trails of where they've got involved. And it's an ongoing project with them. The Sugarbird Trust, also the alien, removal of alien plants. I know there's something coming up quite soon where they're getting the communities involved to come out and help in the one section with removal. The planting of cedar trees is something that we thought was really important as well, even though it's not, close to where the event operates, but it certainly is something that requires assistance. So that's why we got involved in that. But I think we try where we can help projects that are relevant to where we operate.
How important is that kind of education around the environment and taking care of the places that we're kind of running on?
It's very important. I mean, we are super strict with any littering on the mountain. People are, and trail runners are generally pretty good at taking all their stuff off the mountain. But what we do as well is we have our sweeps that go behind and make sure everyone gets off the mountain safe. They're also picking up any litter they find, and often the trails are left cleaner after our event than before we started, because we just make sure we don't leave anything behind.
And what other ways do you have for people to kind of give back besides from volunteering? Is there kind of like a donations element to it, or?
Yes, so they can donate. Certainly when they enter, they get to select those 3 charities that they can donate to. And runners are generous. They really are. They like to give back.
And if you could describe UTCT or UTD in like one word, is there a word that comes to mind?
Inspiring. Magical, I think. Magical, certainly, when you're running in sections of the berg, the Drakensberg, it really is. It just takes your breath away. It's beautiful. It's magical. It's really special that we get to run in those beautiful parts of the world.
And, going to kind of UTD, it obviously has quite a different feel to UTCT being obviously outside of the city. So how important for that particular community is the race, and how does that like bring them all kind of together?
Sure. Underberg loves having any kind of event there because it really helps that community. And they come out and support from the schools there that get involved with the catering, through the spa that's up there. The spa supply us with all our stuff for our aid station. It really is a community event. We use people that are locally, from there. Everything is based in and around Underberg, or certainly, Maritzburg. That whole KZN area gets involved, it's important for us, I think. We don't want to go in there and bring in external suppliers. We want to use what's there. And Spurge has developed a real sense of community up there as well, where the people get involved in the aid station, similar to what we've created down here. So it's different, but it's the same. Yeah.
What are those kind of key? Is it just smaller, like a smaller
Just to give you an example, we have about 3,000 runners for UTCT, and UTD is about 1,000. Sure. So it's smaller fields. But I think the difference there is that everyone stays in the race village. So they're there for 3 or 4 days. They arrive on the Thursday and leave on the Sunday or the Monday. And that makes that quite special. Whereas UTCT is very much people, they leave the race village. But here they camp there, or they can get accommodation right there. There'll be people streaming through at all hours on the finish line, coming to watch friends, or they know their friends coming in, so they'll quickly run out of their tent and come be there. So it's a very different vibe, but certainly also very special. Yeah,
that must create quite a communal kind of feeling, and especially with that sort of late night.
Yes.
Kind of, like finishing early hours in the morning. Yeah, that must be quite amazing.
And then you sitting having dinner with someone who just won the event, or is possibly going to. So you just they have a communal dining hall, so all the runners can eat, and they spend, as I said, like 2 or 3 nights together. So it really does form friendships and bonds, and you leave there kind of feeling like you've made more friends.
And in terms of like bringing your volunteers to the events, what are the kind of is it kind of the same sort of policy or same procedure with UTD and UTCT?
UTD is different in that they need to get to Glen Cairn, but then we put them up in tented accommodation. We feed them. There's like a little volunteer village as well. So, and funny enough, quite a few people come up from Cape Town. They pay for their own flights. Or maybe they're coming up to run one of the shorter distances, but they want to help out. They want to But there is a big community from Joburg and Underberg and from KZN that also get involved as volunteers.
Yeah.
They've done it a few years before, they've run it, and then they want to also give back again. So that's special. That's completely different to UTCT.
The wider kind of South African trail running community obviously have quite a bit of interaction with them. Is there kind of that general community kind of sense across the country, or is it kind of more small, pockets of communities that are quite strong, especially with something like UTD where it's more kind of people from everywhere?
Yeah, it's weird. I think it's just South Africans in general, to be honest. I think we've taken UTCT and this year UTD, we're going on tour to, we did it last year and we're doing it again this year, to Joburg and to KZN, and to interact with those communities. They're the same as the communities here. So I think it's a South African thing. I don't think it's better anywhere. You can't say that Cape Town's better than Joburg or Joburg. I think it's just everywhere. Joburg is also, they've got some great community runs and runners, and the sense of community is strong. There's
been quite a bit of increase in international visitors and possibly from other parts of South Africa. Has that kind of affected the kind of spirit or that community element of the event?
No, I think the internationals that come here become almost part of that. They can't wait to get here to experience the run on the Tuesday, and I think there's also volunteers that we've had over the years that are coming to run and have flown in from around the world and have worked at registration, and then, I've got to go and I'm running the Milo, or I've got to go, I'm running on Sunday kind of thing. So they've heard about it and they want to be part, they want to volunteer as well and come and see what the event's like, but also run it.
I think it's also amazing how certainly with UTCT, how the kind of local community gets involved in sort of the seconding and things like that as well. Speaking of that, you introduced kind of the larger section of pacing for the 100-miler. What was the thinking? Was that kind of also a community thing, or was it just more for safety?
It's more for safety, Dean, I think, because, that miler is a beast of a route, and it takes in sections where the runner can be running on their own for hours on end. It really is a solo journey that they've embarked on. And I think just for safety, just in terms of not only, mountain safety, because we can talk about that at length, just that they've got someone with them if they fall, if they, you know what I mean? I just think it's important. The other events, certainly the shorter distances, you've always got someone ahead of you or behind you. But the miler and the 100K, I think, can spread out significantly. And that was the thinking behind having paces. And I think also, with Stuart going to Western States, they have paces for certain sections, and some of the international events, we kind of brought that idea back, thinking it would be good just to have our runners out there with people, that can help them just for moral support, not for anything else, because they have to carry all their own stuff. They can't, you can't have the runner having to help their pacer because something happened to them. So they have to be self-sufficient. But I think that it was a very important addition to have at the event.
Why would you say that everyone needs to kind of volunteer at least once at UTCT, but hopefully keep coming back?
Just to experience the other side of the event. You can watch the reels, you can see the social media of all the guys coming in and the rah-rah of the front face of the event. But I think it's really important for runners to see the other side and to be a part of that. It's a huge learning experience for a lot of them. A lot of them say to me, geez, I never thought about that, or I didn't realize that would, it's I think it's very one-sided. Just running an event, you're helping out is important to do at least once. You don't have to keep coming back.
It does give you it does definitely make you a lot more grateful. And,
totally. I think, you get that medal, or you run past a route marshal and or you go through the aid station, you're just that much more grateful because you know what they've been through, and you're like, oh, thanks so much for giving up your time, for being there to help me.
And what's one piece of advice you would give someone who's maybe volunteering for the first time this year?
I think be prepared for, it's not just a few hours, I think that's often people think they're just coming for a couple of hours. I've had to make phone calls. You give like the sign up of like it's from 2 a.m. till 10 in the morning or whatever. And they sign up and then they go, oh, 2 a.m. I thought it was from 2, and you have to phone them and say, no, you're coming out at 2 a.m. So I think it's just be prepared for, it's challenging, but it's rewarding. Yeah. There's a lot of hears. It's special. Those late night shifts are good to experience.
Be prepared for anything and everything.
Yeah, also, I think so. Come prepared
to dive in.
Come prepared for any weather too. It can be boiling hot at one stage and then freezing cold a few hours later. So I think that's also the challenge of being in Cape Town.
And if you could kind of go back to yourself like 10 years ago when it first started, what is the one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Don't sweat the small stuff. I think that's been something I've learned. I'm quite a perfectionist by nature, and you want everything to go according to plan, and it's never going to. And I think that's the advice that I give in my briefings or when I'm chatting to people that have just joined the team. It's just like we can be prepared and plan and have a spreadsheet. It never ends up looking like that picture. And you've just got to like move on and try fix it and not sweat the small stuff, which is something that I used to do a lot of.
And looking, like short, medium, long term, not only in terms of the volunteers, but just in terms of the events, the races, what are those kind of plans and things that you're kind of working on?
Not introducing a new event for now, but I don't know. You never know. Stuart's always planning something in the background. I think ultimately we'd like to get more runners. But we obviously have with the trails, it's capped currently at 2,800 runners across the 6 distances. We would really like to see that increase. And our plan is also we'd like to get more people run the miler. That for us is a big thing going forward. We'd really like to see that grow. Although the 100K is our focus, with it being part of the World Trail Majors and part of that whole end of year race, we would like to see that miler grow.
Why would you say to someone, you need to sign up immediately, like do it, don't delay?
Because it's people, Cape Town waits, people wait. We obviously get the people that enter straight away but Cape Town waits. They're like, okay, I'll be able to get an entry. And they sell out. We're expecting it to sell out. I mean, last year, the 3 shorter distances sold out really quickly. But I think by July, we were pretty much June, July, we were sold out in those shorter distances. And I think it's going to, the hearse and the vibe that was created last year, I think it's going to sell out quicker. And it's difficult to get, as you get closer to the race, it's difficult to get entries. I think don't hesitate. If you're sitting on that fence and you're thinking, maybe, do it.
Make it your goal for the year.
Yeah, totally. It's November. The year's going to go by so quickly. It's something you need to experience and be part of and just, do it.
And what's the big kind of thing you're focusing on this for this year's kind of UTCT?
I think Race Village, we've got that cricket pitch in the center. We want to build something over it that allows us to expand to the other fields. And I think our aid stations, I think we were pretty spot on last year with what we did, but we just want to focus on making those more spectator friendly, finding a way to get more spectators in. They don't have to be supporting the runners. If you think of some of the events, Cycle Tour to Oceans, not everybody who's out on the side of the road is even a runner. They just come out because it's become a Cape Town institution. So I think that is certainly something that we're going to be focusing on to try and make spectator zones. And just encouraging people to be a part of it, to come and check it out. And That's a big focus of ours.
I think UCT and Alphen have kind of taken the lead. So everyone kind of gravitates to those kind of places. So it's like encouraging people to spread out a bit more.
Yeah, we'd like, certainly go there. Those are great to go and spend a good few hours there. But, Llandudno is beautiful.
Yeah.
To go and sit there. That aid station is right there on the beach. It's a stunning spot to be at. Some of the aid stations in the deep south are also, Komaki, Nerdhoek, very special to be a part of. So it's just finding ways that we can hook people in, whether it's through coffees or Wi-Fi or beer. That always brings everybody. We're brainstorming about things like that and how to just make it better for everybody, because that then helps the runners, creates a vibe.
And then I asked at the beginning about the 2 words on the socks. What would your 2 words be?
I was thinking about it. I was thinking, like, keep going, because the person's behind you.
Yeah.
Keep going. I think that would be pretty cool.
I like that.
Or, no, that's 3 words. No, keep going.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
And, I guess keep going with your hard work. It's really, I suppose for you, it's probably, do you feel that it's appreciated?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Runners are certainly the ones that I think, that's another thing. Volunteering makes them then appreciate what our core team put together. And it's just always getting thank yous, and people are very appreciative.
Well, thank you. And thank you for joining me.
No, thank you.
Subscribe to the Trail Chasers today and ensure that you never miss an episode. And if you know someone thinking about starting trail running, share this with them. It might be the nudge they need to join you.